Since the release of chapter 221 with Gojo's release from being sealed, fans of Jujutsu Kaisen have been tuning in every week in order to see the back and forth battle between the strongest sorcerer in history, Sukuna, versus the strongest sorcerer of today, Gojo Satoru. And with the release of chapter 235 last week, after countless chapters of this fight, there was finally a champion, a winner, one declared as the strongest sorcerer in history. Or so we thought. What happened to Gojo 1? Because, I don't know, he just doesn't seem to look very victorious to me. He looks more so like half the man he used to be. I'm sorry. But, jokes aside, despite my goat checking out early and getting off-screened, I really enjoyed this chapter, and I want to briefly go over what exactly took place within the events and why this was the perfect conclusion for the character of Satoru Gojo. I would arguably go as far as to say this was my favorite chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and the chapter that I believe that is the best within the series thus far, but I can't really make these crazy claims without explaining what exactly happened within this chapter and why I believe it to be a fantastic end to the battle of the strongest sorcerer. So the chapter initially starts with a flashback, basically rule number 1 of anime and manga: if an episode or a chapter starts with a flashback, someone is about to die, which is only further proved with Gojo stating, "I've always told my students, when you die, you'll be alone, so please tell me this is just some ridiculous dream," hinting at the fact that he had indeed passed away. Geto and Gojo speak about Gojo's battle with Sukuna, and even despite Sukuna not giving it all he had, Gojo still managed to fall short and lose. He could no longer bear the title of the strongest, since he had lost, but he was always referred to as the strongest, as Satoru the strongest. But once losing, what did this make him? It made him human. It made him simply Satoru Gojo. During this near-death state, Gojo is met with people who have passed and those he's created bonds with. He speaks to Geto and also Nanami, who points out to Gojo that, after all, you never cared about keeping sorcery going or protecting people. You were just in the game because you got a kick out of it. But this just simply isn't true, and the reasoning as to why Nanami states this in full confidence is that he doesn't understand Gojo. No matter how hard he tries, he will never be able to understand Gojo. You can admire a blooming flower, but you can't ask it to understand you. Nobody is able to understand Gojo the strongest, but through his death, he's finally able to be freed from this duty he had placed. He was finally able to be human and ultimately, and simply, Gojo Satoru. We see Gojo yell out to Masamichi, "I thought you said no Jujutsu sorcerer dies without regrets," and he smiles widely as humanely possible. And as we see Nanami, Haibara, Riko, and Kuroi smiling and enjoying their time, Gojo says, "Now I'm hoping this isn't a dream," as he knows that through death, he will finally be able to just simply be Gojo Satoru, nothing more and nothing less, and he can finally rest. And then we are met with the panel showing Gojo Satoru's body on the floor, beaten to a pulp with blood dripping everywhere, and Sukuna standing over his sliced in half body. Sukuna speaks to Gojo one last time, "You did well, Gojo Satoru. I won't forget you for as long as I live." And we are able to see Gojo smirk slightly within his final moments before passing away. Through his death, Gojo was able to simply be Gojo. His humanity is what had caused him to lose the battle with Sukuna, which made him internally stronger than ever. He no longer had to be the strongest or had to bear any titles besides his own name. He was finally able to be Gojo Satoru, as we see Sukuna reference him by simply his name one last time. This chapter provided us with what I believe to be the perfect conclusion for Gojo Satoru's character. If by the grace of God he wakes up in the next chapter, that's okay. But if this is truly his end, that's okay too. I am content with this chapter as well as Gojo Satoru's conclusion, and I believe these sequences to be the accumulation of his entire journey and everything he stood for. Finally being able to become nothing more and nothing less than himself, he was finally able to become Gojo Satoru, the human.